The grand hall stretched out like a golden ocean, its ceiling so high that clouds could have formed beneath it. Taman stood at the center of the massive room, his boots clicking against floors made of crystal that showed the stars beneath. He wore his standard military uniform, dark green with simple patches showing his rank and service. Compared to everything around him, he looked plain, almost poor. Around him, thousands of beings filled the hall. They were the Valtheris, the masters of this part of space. They looked almost human, but taller, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes held colors that changed when they moved. Their clothes were made of light itself, shifting and flowing like living things. They whispered to each other, and their voices sounded like music. Taemin kept his face blank. He had seen worse than this. Being stared at was nothing compared to what he had survived back home. Earth had sent him here because he was a soldier, not a diplomat. The real ambassador was supposed to come later. For now, they needed someone who could stand in a room full of aliens and not break down. Someone who had faced death before and lived to tell about it. At the far end of the hall sat a throne that seemed to be carved from a single piece of starlight. On it sat Queen Mirai. She was ancient, though she looked young. Her eyes were different from the others. They were darker, deeper, like they held entire galaxies inside them. She watched Taemin without expression, one hand resting on the arm of her throne. A figure stepped forward from the crowd. She was tall, even for a Valtheris, with sharp features and armor that blazed with gold and silver light. Her hair floated around her head like she was underwater. This was Commander Hana, one of the highest military officers in the Empire. She had won battles across 100 worlds. Everyone in the hall turned to watch her. Hana circled Taemin slowly, looking him up and down like he was an insect she had found on her boot. Her lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "This is what Earth sends us." Her voice carried across the entire hall. "A single soldier in a cloth uniform? I expected humans to at least try to impress us." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Taemin did not move. He kept his eyes forward, his hands at his sides. Hana moved closer, her face now just inches from his. "Do you know how long I have lived, human? 3,000 years. I have commanded fleets that could turn your entire world to ash in minutes. I have fought creatures that would make your people scream in terror. And Earth sends you," more laughter, louder this time. Some of the Valtheris were holding their stomachs, they found it so funny. "Your species lives for what? 80 years if you are lucky?" Hana continued, walking around him again. "You barely exist long enough to learn anything. You control one single planet around one single star. You have no empire, no fleet that matters, no technology worth mentioning. Tell me, soldier, why should the Queen waste even a moment of her eternal life speaking with your kind?" The laughter grew. Someone in the crowd shouted something about humans being like children playing with toys. Another voice called them insects who had just learned to fly. The mockery built on itself, growing louder and crueler. Taemin still did not speak. He had been trained for this. Not specifically for aliens insulting him in a giant palace, but for keeping calm when everything around him wanted him to break. He breathed slowly, in and out, counting each breath. He thought about home, about the people waiting for him to return, about the mission. Hana seemed annoyed that he would not react. She stepped back and addressed the crowd instead. Perhaps humans are too primitive to even understand when they are being insulted. Like teaching mathematics to a stone, the crowd loved it. They clapped their hands, though the sound was strange, like wind chimes in a storm. "Maybe we should send him back to his little world with a message," Hana said. "Tell them to come back in 10,000 years when they have actually accomplished something worth our attention. If they survive that long, which I doubt." She turned back to Taemin, her face close to his again. "You stand in the greatest hall in the known universe, soldier. Beings here have seen stars being born. They have shaped the destiny of galaxies. And you, what have you done? What has your entire species done that would make you worthy to breathe the same air as the Queen?" For the first time, Taemin spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. "I survived." The laughter stopped. Hana blinked, surprised that he had spoken at all. "You survived?" She repeated the words like they were a joke. "You survived what? A short life on a safe little planet? That is your great achievement?" Taemin looked at her then, really looked at her. His eyes were tired but hard. "Yes." Hana opened her mouth to say something else, something cutting and cruel. But before she could, a voice spoke from the throne. It was not loud, but it cut through the hall like a blade. "Enough." Queen Mirai had spoken. The single word seemed to pull all the air from the room. Every Valtheris in the hall immediately stopped talking. They turned to face her, their expressions suddenly serious. Even Hana stepped back, her head bowing slightly. The queen rose from her throne. She had not moved since Taemin entered the hall over an hour ago. Now she stood, and the movement made the entire room feel smaller somehow. She was not taller than the others, but she carried herself like she contained mountains. She walked down the steps from her throne slowly. Each footstep echoed. The crowd parted before her without being asked, creating a path straight to where Taemin stood. Hana moved aside quickly, her earlier confidence gone. Queen Mirai stopped a few feet from Taemin. She studied his face for a long moment. Her ancient eyes moved across his features like she was reading a book. Taemin met her gaze and did not look away. He had nothing to hide. He was what he was. The queen tilted her head slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost gentle, but everyone in the hall heard every word clearly. "You have your ancestors' eyes." Taemin frowned slightly, not understanding. The queen smiled just a little, like she was remembering something from very long ago. Something that made her both happy and sad at the same time. She turned to face the crowd, her hands folded behind her back. "It seems my people have forgotten their history. That will be corrected." "Commander Hana?" Hana straightened immediately. "Yes, my queen? You questioned why I would give this human my time. You mocked his species as primitive and worthless." The queen's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You will have the opportunity to see exactly what humans are capable of. Prepare the arena of proving. This soldier will face Champion Day 1 at sunrise." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. The arena of proving was sacred, used only for the most important trials. And Day 1 was a legend. He had never lost a single combat in 500 years. Hana's face went pale. Even she looked concerned now. Taemin kept his expression neutral, though his heart was suddenly beating faster. He did not know who Day 1 was, but he understood enough. This was a test. Maybe his last one. The queen looked at Taemin one more time. For just a second, something passed across her face. It might have been respect, or memory, or hope. Then she turned and walked back to her throne, her footsteps the only sound in the silent hall. Queen Mirai sat alone in her private chamber high in the palace tower. The walls here were clear, showing the night sky in all directions. 3 moons hung in the darkness, casting silver light across the room. She did not need light to see. She had lived so long that darkness was an old friend. She held a small object in her hand. It was metal, old and worn, a human military tag from 10,000 years ago. The name stamped on it read, Jin Woo. She ran her thumb over the letters like she had done countless times before. The memories came flooding back. They always did when she touched this piece of metal. It was the only thing she had left from that time. From that terrible war that almost ended everything. 10,000 years ago. She had been Princess Mirai, not queen. Her mother ruled the Valtheris Empire then, and it was the greatest civilization in the galaxy. They had millions of worlds, billions of ships, and armies that could shake planets. They thought nothing could threaten them. They were wrong. The Drakthar swarm came from dark space, from the empty void between galaxies. They were not like anything the Valtheris had ever fought. They did not negotiate or communicate. They only consumed. World after world fell to them, eaten and turned into more swarm ships. The Drakthar grew stronger with every victory. The Valtheris threw everything they had at the swarm. Their best weapons, their greatest warriors, their most powerful fleets. Nothing worked. The swarm adapted to every attack, learned from every battle. Within 50 years, the empire had lost half its territory. Within 100 years, they were on the edge of extinction. Mirai remembered the desperation, the fear. Her people had never known defeat before. They did not know how to fight when winning seemed impossible. Many wanted to surrender, though the swarm did not take prisoners. Others wanted to flee to another galaxy to run and hide. The empire was falling apart from within. That was when they found the humans. It happened by accident. A Valtheris scout ship running from the swarm made an emergency jump to a random system. They landed on a planet the locals called Earth. The ship was badly damaged. The crew thought they would die there on some primitive world far from home. But the humans helped them. They did not have advanced technology. They barely had spaceflight. But they fixed the ship as best they could and asked for nothing in return except one thing: information about what was happening in the galaxy. When the Valtheris explained about the swarm, the humans became very quiet. Then their leader, a woman named Commander Bo-Ra, said something that changed everything. "We know how to fight when winning is impossible. We have been doing it our entire history." The Valtheris did not understand at first. How could these primitive beings help an advanced civilization? But Commander Bo-Ra explained. Humans had spent their entire existence fighting against things stronger than them. Nature, disease, each other. They had learned to win not through power but through stubbornness and creativity. They refused to give up even when logic said they should. The scout ship brought this information back to the Empire. At first, the Valtheris leaders laughed. But Princess Mireille, who was commanding the defense of their homeworlds, decided to investigate. She went to Earth herself. She met Jinwu there. He was a soldier, young by Valtheris standards but already marked by many battles. Earth was fighting its own war at the time against itself. But Jinwu said his people would pause their conflicts to help fight the swarm. Because the swarm threatened all life. Not just the Valtheris. Mireille was skeptical. These humans lived for less than a century. They had simple weapons and slow ships. What could they possibly do against an enemy that had destroyed half the Valtheris Empire? Jinwu smiled at her doubts. "Your Highness, we have a saying on Earth. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Let us show you how humans wage war." 50,000 human soldiers joined the Valtheris fleet. It was all Earth could spare. Against an enemy with billions of warriors, it seemed like nothing. But Mireille agreed to let them fight. The first battle changed her mind forever. The swarm attacked a Valtheris colony world, and the defense fleet moved to protect it. The Valtheris fought with honor and tradition, in formations that had worked for thousands of years. The swarm tore through them in minutes. Then the human ships arrived. They did not fight with honor. They used tricks and traps. They pretended to run away, then ambushed the swarm from behind. They crashed damaged ships into swarm vessels on purpose, sacrificing themselves to take out larger targets. They changed tactics constantly, never fighting the same way twice. Most importantly, they did not quit. Valtheris ships would retreat when damaged, following doctrine that said preserving forces was important. Human ships would fight until they physically could not anymore. Mireille watched a human destroyer get torn in half by swarm fire, and the front section kept shooting until its power died. The colony was saved. Barely. The Valtheris lost 30 ships. The humans lost 48 out of 50, but they won. After the battle, Mireille found Jinwu in the medical bay. He had been injured but refused treatment until his crew was cared for first. She asked him why humans fought so recklessly, throwing away their lives. Jinwu looked at her with tired eyes. "We are not throwing away our lives, Your Highness. We are spending them. There is a difference. Our lives are short, so we learned long ago that what matters is not how long we live, but what we do with the time we have. If we spend our brief lives saving others, that is a good trade." Those words stayed with Mireille forever. She began to understand. Humans did not fight despite their short lives. They fought with courage because of them. Every day was precious to them, so they did not waste time being afraid. Over the next 20 years, human soldiers fought alongside the Valtheris in every major battle against the swarm. They taught the Valtheris how to be creative, how to adapt, how to never give up. Slowly the tide turned. The Empire stopped losing ground. Then they started winning. Jinwu became Mireille's personal guard and closest friend. He taught her about Earth, about human history, about their poetry and music and art. She taught him about the galaxy, about the wonders among the stars. They spent long nights talking about everything and nothing. The final battle came on a dead world at the edge of Valtheris space. The Swarm Queen was there, the single mind controlling the entire species. Kill her and the swarm would fall apart, but she was protected by millions of swarm warriors. The plan was desperate. A small strike team would reach the Queen while the fleets kept the swarm busy. Mireille led the team. Jinwu insisted on coming with her. They reached the Queen's chamber deep underground. But the swarm knew they were coming. Thousands of warriors poured into the tunnels, cutting off their escape. The strike team held the entrance while Mireille advanced to face the Queen. Jinwu stayed at the entrance. He and 20 other humans held that narrow tunnel against an endless wave of swarm creatures. Mireille could hear the battle behind her as she fought the Queen. The sounds of human weapons, human voices shouting to each other, and slowly those voices grew fewer. When Mireille finally killed the Swarm Queen, she ran back to the entrance. She found Jinwoo there, surrounded by dead swarm warriors. He was barely alive, his body broken. He smiled when he saw her. "Did we win?" he asked. "Yes," Mirai said, tears streaming down her face. "We won." Jinwoo nodded. "Good, that is good." He pressed something into her hand. His military tag. "Remember us," he whispered. "Remember that humans were here, that we fought beside you." He died in her arms, along with 40,000 other humans who fell in that final battle. The war ended. The swarm was destroyed. The Valtheris Empire was saved. But the cost had been terrible. Nearly 90% of the human soldiers who came to help were dead. Earth itself had suffered during the war, its people divided and exhausted. The human leaders came to Mirai, who became queen after her mother died in battle. They made an unusual request. They asked for isolation. They wanted to be left alone to heal, to rebuild, to grow on their own terms without interference from galactic powers. They asked the Valtheris to seal away the records of the war and let humanity be forgotten for a time. Mirai did not want to agree, but she owed humanity everything. So she granted their request. The records were locked away. The Valtheris who remembered were sworn to secrecy, and humanity disappeared from the galactic stage. For 10,000 years, Mirai waited. She sent scouts to watch Earth from a distance to see if humans survived. For millennia, they seemed stuck on their single world, fighting among themselves. She worried they would destroy themselves before reaching the stars. But 3 months ago, a human ship appeared at the edge of Valtheris space. They had finally achieved faster-than-light travel on their own. They had reached the stars. The time had come. Mirai looked down at the military tag in her hand. Tomorrow, Taemin would face Daewon in the arena. She did not know if he would win, but she knew he would not quit. She had seen that same determination in his eyes, the same fire that Jinwoo had. "Your children have returned, old friend," she whispered to the tag, "and I will make sure my people remember what yours did for us." She closed her hand around the metal and looked out at the stars, waiting for dawn. The arena of proving stood at the heart of the palace complex, open to the sky. It was a circle of white stone 300 feet across, worn smooth by thousands of years of combat. Around it rose stands that could hold 50,000 spectators. This morning, every seat was filled. Taemin stood at one end of the arena looking at the ground beneath his feet. He had not slept much. A Valtheris attendant had brought him food and water at dawn, along with a simple message. The combat would be to first blood only, not to death. That was something, at least. He would probably survive this, probably. The crowd was different from yesterday. They were not laughing now. They watched in silence, waiting. Taemin could feel thousands of eyes on him. He tried to ignore them and focus on what was coming. Across the arena, a figure emerged from the opposite entrance. This was Daewon, the Queen's champion. He was massive, 7 feet tall, and built like a tank. His skin was darker than other Valtheris, like polished black stone. His eyes glowed gold. He wore no armor, only loose pants and a bare chest covered in scars. Each scar told a story of a battle won. Daewon walked to the center of the arena with calm confidence. He did not rush or show off. He simply moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times before and won every single time. When he reached the middle, he turned and waited for Taemin to approach. Taemin walked forward. Each step felt heavy. When he reached speaking distance, Daewon looked down at him. The height difference was almost comical. Taemin's head barely reached the champion's chest. "Human soldier." Daewon's voice was deep and calm. "I have fought for 500 years. I have never lost. I do not intend to lose today, but I will give you a clean fight and an honorable defeat. Are you ready?" Taemin nodded. He did not waste energy on words. A gong rang out across the arena. The fight had begun. Daewon moved first. He was impossibly fast for someone so large. His fist came at Taemin's head like a hammer. Taemin ducked and rolled away, barely avoiding the blow. Where his head had been a second ago, the air cracked with the force of the punch. The champion followed, not giving Taemin time to think. A kick came at his ribs. Taemin blocked with his arms and felt the impact travel through his whole body. He slid backward across the smooth stone, his boots scraping for grip. Another punch. Another kick. Daewon attacked with steady precision. Each strike meant to test and measure. Taemin dodged what he could and blocked what he could not. Within the first minute, his arms were bruised and his breathing was heavy. The crowd remained silent, watching. Commander Hana sat in a special section near the Queen's box. She watched with a mixture of concern and certainty. This would be over soon. The human was hopelessly outmatched. Daewon grabbed for Taemin, trying to catch him in a hold. Taemin twisted away at the last second and created distance. He needed to think. Fighting strength against strength was suicide. He had to be smarter. The champion charged again. This time Taemin did something unexpected. Instead of backing away, he ran forward to meet the charge. At the last moment, he dropped into a slide, going beneath Daewon's reaching arms and between his legs. As he passed under, Taemin struck at the back of the champion's knee with his elbow. It was not enough to cause damage, but it made Daewon stumble for just a second. The crowd gasped. No one had seen Daewon stumble before. The champion turned, and for the first time he looked at Taemin with real interest. Clever. You fight like prey trying to survive a predator. Is this what human combat is? Taemin wiped blood from his lip. We fight to win, no matter how. Daewon smiled. Good. I was afraid this would be boring. The pace increased. The champion stopped measuring and started truly fighting. His attacks came faster, harder, from unexpected angles. Taemin could not keep up. A fist caught his shoulder and sent him spinning. A kick to his leg made him fall. He rolled away as Daewon's foot slammed down where his head had been, cracking the stone. Taemin got up. His leg hurt badly. His vision was blurry. He could taste blood, but he got up. Daewon came at him again. Taemin tried a new tactic. He grabbed a handful of the dust and small stones from the cracked arena floor and threw it at the champion's face. Daewon blocked with his arm, momentarily blinded. Taemin used the opening to land 3 quick strikes to the champion's ribs. They did almost nothing. Hitting Daewon was like hitting a wall, but it surprised the champion. He had not expected such a dirty trick. You have no honor, Daewon said, but he was smiling. I have survival, Taemin replied. The fight continued. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Taemin was slowing down, his body accumulating damage from near misses and blocked hits. But he adapted. He learned Daewon's patterns. The champion favored his right side. He always followed an overhead strike with a left kick. Small things, but important. Taemin started using the arena itself. When Daewon charged, Taemin would position himself near one of the carved pillars at the arena's edge. The champion would have to adjust his attacks to avoid hitting the stone. It gave Taemin fractions of a second to breathe and plan. The crowd began to murmur. This was lasting longer than anyone expected. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, yet this one kept standing up. Kept fighting. Kept thinking. Commander Hana leaned forward in her seat, her expression troubled. She glanced at Queen Mireille, who watched with an unreadable face. Daewon fainted with a punch and swept Taemin's legs instead. The human hit the ground hard. The air knocked from his lungs. The champion stood over him, ready to deliver a finishing strike that would draw blood and end the match. Taemin saw the strike coming. In that frozen moment, he saw exactly what would happen. Daewon's fist would come down, catch him in the face, blood would flow, and it would be over. He would have lost. He would have proved Hana right. Humans were weak. Worthless. No. Using everything he had left, Taemin kicked up with both legs, catching Daewon in the chest. It did not hurt the champion, but it pushed him back a step. Just one step. Just enough for Taemin to roll away and get to his feet one more time. His legs shook. His vision was narrow. Every breath hurt. But he stood. Daewon studied him with new eyes. You cannot win, human. Why do you keep rising? Taemin coughed, spat blood to the side. Because falling is not the same as losing. Something changed in the champion's expression. Respect. Real respect. I see. Then let us finish this properly. Daewon came at him one final time, putting his full speed and power into the attack. Taemin knew he could not dodge or block anymore. His body had nothing left. So he did the only thing he could think of. He attacked back. They met in the center of the arena. Daewon's fist came at Taemin's head. At the same moment, Taemin dropped low and drove forward with his last strength, aiming for the one spot that had been damaged during the fight. The champion's knee, which Taemin had struck earlier, and which Daewon had been slightly favoring for the last few minutes. Taemin's shoulder hit the knee from the side. It was not enough to break or seriously damage it, but combined with the champion's own forward momentum and the earlier damage, it was enough to make the leg buckle. Daewon fell. Actually fell. His own punch missed as he went down to one knee. In that moment of imbalance, Taemin used the last energy in his body to swing his arm up in a desperate strike. The edge of his hand caught Daewon across the cheek. A thin line of gold blood appeared on the champion's face. First blood. The arena went completely silent. 50,000 Valtheris stared in shock. Daewon touched his cheek, looked at the blood on his fingers, and then began to laugh. It was a genuine sound, full of joy and surprise. 500 years, he said, still laughing. 500 years, and this human is the one who finally marks me. He stood up, his full height towering over Taemin. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed. A deep bow, the kind given to equals. You are a true warrior, Taemin of Earth. I am honored to have fought you. Taemin tried to bow back, but his legs finally gave out. He fell to his knees, then onto his side. His vision was going dark. The last thing he saw before passing out was Daewon catching him before he hit the ground, and the champion's voice saying, "Rest now, little brother. You have earned it." In the stands, Queen Mirai stood and smiled. Commander Hana sat frozen, her mind struggling to accept what she had just witnessed. Around them, the arena slowly filled with sound as 50,000 Valtheris began to cheer for the human soldier who refused to quit. Taemin woke in a room filled with soft light. His body ached everywhere, but the sharp pain was gone. He touched his ribs carefully and found them wrapped in something warm that pulsed with gentle energy. Valtheris medical technology, he guessed, much better than anything Earth had. He tried to sit up, and immediately a figure appeared beside the bed. It was a Valtheris woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She pressed him back down gently but firmly. "Rest, soldier. Your body needs more time to heal. You fought well, but you took significant damage." "How long have I been out?" His voice was rough. 6 hours. "The Queen requests your presence in the Great Hall when you are able to walk. But there is no rush. She can wait." Taemin forced himself to sit up despite her protests. "If the Queen wants to see me, I should go now." The woman sighed but helped him stand. His legs were wobbly but held. She gave him fresh clothes, identical to his military uniform. Someone must have scanned it and made an exact copy. He dressed slowly, each movement careful. When he was ready, 2 guards appeared to escort him. They did not grab him or push him. They simply walked beside him, their expressions neutral. The walk through the palace took 20 minutes. Taemin used the time to gather his thoughts. He had won the fight somehow. What came next, he had no idea. The Great Hall was full again, just like before. But the atmosphere was different. The Valtheris were not laughing or joking. They watched Taemin enter with serious faces. He could not tell if they were angry or impressed or both. Queen Mirai stood at the center of the hall, not on her throne. Beside her was a Valtheris woman with white robes and ancient eyes. Commander Hana stood a few feet away, her face carefully blank. Champion Daewon was there too, a small bandage on his cheek where Taemin had struck him. Taemin walked forward until he was 10 feet from the Queen. He stopped and stood at attention, the way soldiers did back home. Queen Mirai looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Taemin of Earth, you have proven yourself in combat against our greatest warrior. You have shown courage and determination. But there is something you must know. Something all my people must remember." She gestured to the woman in white robes. "This is Yuna, keeper of our history. She will show you all something that has been hidden for 10,000 years. Yuna stepped forward and raised her hands. The air above her head shimmered and an image appeared, floating like a giant screen. It showed space, but strange space. Ships that looked nothing like Valtheris vessels fought against dark creatures that moved like insects. "This is the Drakthar swarm." Yuna's voice was quiet but clear. 10,000 years ago, they nearly destroyed our empire. We threw everything we had against them and failed. We were weeks away from total extinction. The image changed, showing Valtheris worlds burning, cities falling, billions dying. The crowd watched in silence. Even those who knew the story looked uncomfortable. "In our darkest hour," Yuna continued, "we encountered a species on a remote world. They were primitive by our standards. They had barely reached their own moon. But they had something we had lost. They had hope. They had the will to fight when logic said fighting was pointless." The image changed again. Now it showed human ships. They were crude, barely held together. But they flew into battle alongside gleaming Valtheris vessels. The contrast was almost funny, like children's toys beside works of art. But the toys fought like demons. Taemin stared at the image. He recognized some of the ship designs from history books. These were Earth's first space warships from the time of the Unification Wars. He had thought those were myths, stories made up to inspire people. But here they were, real and fighting in space. 50,000 human soldiers joined our fleet, Yuna said. It was all their world could spare. They were led by warriors like Jinwoo, Bo-Ra, and Sang-Hee. They taught us how to fight with creativity instead of tradition, how to never surrender even when winning seemed impossible. The images showed battles, humans using tactics that made no sense by Valthera standards, ramming ships into enemies, setting traps, fighting in ways that broke every rule of honorable combat, and slowly, impossibly, the tide turning. For 20 years humans and Valtheras fought side by side, Yuna said. Over 40,000 human soldiers died in that war. They gave their short lives to save our eternal civilization. In the final battle, Jinwoo himself held a tunnel against an endless enemy, so that our queen could strike the killing blow against the swarm. A new image appeared. It showed a younger Queen Mirai holding a human soldier. He was dying, clearly. Blood covered both of them. The look on the queen's face was one of absolute grief. The hall was silent. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. Queen Mirai spoke again, her voice heavy with emotion. After the war, humanity asked only one thing in return for their sacrifice. They asked to be left alone, to heal and grow without interference from galactic powers. I granted this request because I owed them everything. We sealed the records. We let the galaxy forget that humans existed. She reached into her robe and pulled out something small. It glinted in the light. This is all I have left of Jinwoo, his military tag. For 10,000 years I have waited for humanity to return to the stars. I sent scouts to watch from a distance. I feared your species would destroy itself before achieving spaceflight. But you survived, you grew, and now you have returned. Mirai walked forward until she stood directly in front of Taemin. She held up the tag so he could see it. The name was worn but readable, Jinwoo. The serial number was in an old Korean military format that Earth had not used in 8,000 years. When I saw you yesterday, the Queen said softly, I recognized your eyes. The same determination, the same fire that Jinwoo had, that all the human soldiers had. You are their descendants, their legacy. She turned to face the assembled crowd. This is why I commanded the trial in the arena. Not to humiliate the human, but to show you all what I already knew, that humanity has not changed in 10,000 years. They still fight with everything they have. They still refuse to quit. They still stand up no matter how many times they fall. The Queen's voice grew stronger, filling the hall with power. The Valtheris Empire owes humanity a debt that can never be fully repaid. We would not exist without their sacrifice. Every Valtheris alive today owes their life to human soldiers who died defending worlds they had never seen, protecting people they had never met. She turned to Commander Hana. The commander stood very still, her face pale. The Queen's gaze was not angry, but it was absolute. Commander Hana, yesterday you mocked this human. You called his species primitive and worthless. You questioned why I would waste my time speaking with him. Do you understand now why your words were wrong? Hana's voice came out barely above a whisper. Yes, my queen, I understand. I am deeply ashamed. Good. Shame is the beginning of wisdom. The queen's expression softened slightly. You are not alone in your ignorance. I sealed these records so your generation never learned what mine knew. That was my choice, and perhaps it was a mistake. But it will be corrected. From this day forward, every Valtheris child will learn about the human warriors who saved our civilization. Their names will be remembered. Their sacrifice will be honored. The Queen looked around at the assembled crowd. Let it be known across the Empire. Humanity has returned to the galaxy. They are our allies, our brothers and sisters in arms. They will be treated with the respect and honor they earned 10,000 years ago. Anyone who treats them with disrespect answers to me personally. Silence. Then slowly one Valtheris began to tap their chest with their fist. It was a gesture of respect, like applause, but more solemn. Another joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire hall filled with the sound of 50,000 fists beating against 50,000 chests. The rhythm was like thunder. Taemin stood frozen, overwhelmed. He did not know what to say. How could he respond to this? He was just a soldier. He had not done anything special. He just did what any human would do when pushed into a corner. Queen Mirai seemed to read his thoughts. She smiled and spoke quietly, just for him. You think you are ordinary, Taemin. But that is what makes your species extraordinary. Every human has this fire inside them. Jinwoo was not special among your people. He was simply human, as are you. That is what makes you all so remarkable. She held out her hand. Welcome home, son of Earth. The galaxy has waited long enough for your return. Taemin took her hand. It was warm and strong. Around them, the Valtheris continued their gesture of respect, the sound echoing through the hall like the heartbeat of an empire acknowledging its debt. The great hall remained full as the queen raised her hand for silence. The rhythmic beating of fists against chests slowly faded until only the sound of breathing remained. Thousands of Valtheris waited to hear what would come next. Queen Mirai stood tall, her presence commanding absolute attention. She had ruled for 10,000 years, and every moment of that wait showed in her eyes. But today those ancient eyes held something new. Hope. I have made my decision, she announced. The Valtheris Empire will extend full alliance status to humanity. This is not a treaty of convenience or politics. This is a bond of brotherhood sealed in blood 10,000 years ago and renewed today. Earth and all human colonies will be recognized as sovereign and equal partners with the Empire. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Alliance status was rarely given, and never to a species so young. But no one voiced objection. Not after what they had just learned. Not after what they had seen in the arena. Furthermore, the Queen continued, I grant Taemin of Earth the title of Shield Brother. This is an ancient honor, last given 5,000 years ago. It marks him as one who has fought beside the Valtheris and proven worthy of our deepest respect. He will serve as humanity's first ambassador to our empire, if he accepts. All eyes turned to Taemin. He stood there in his simple uniform, still bruised and battered from the fight. He looked small and fragile compared to the beings around him. But after what they had witnessed, no one doubted his strength. Taemin spoke carefully. Your Majesty, I am just a soldier. I am not trained as a diplomat. Earth sent me here because I could stand in a room full of strangers without breaking. That does not make me qualified to speak for my entire species. Queen Mirai smiled. You stood in this hall while being mocked and did not respond with anger or violence. You fought our greatest champion and showed creativity, determination, and respect even in defeat. You are exactly the kind of person who should represent humanity. But if you truly feel you cannot accept, I will not force you. The title of Shield Brother is yours regardless. Taemin was quiet for a moment. He thought about home, about the people who sent him here, about Jinwoo and the others who died so long ago. Finally, he nodded. I accept. I will do my best to honor the humans who came before me. Well spoken. The Queen turned to Commander Hana. Her voice became formal, carrying power that made the air feel heavy. Commander Hana, come forward. Hana walked forward with measured steps. Her face was composed, but her hands trembled slightly. She stopped a few feet from the Queen and waited. You are one of our finest military commanders, the Queen said. You have served the Empire with distinction for 3,000 years. You have won battles on 100 worlds. Your honor has never been questioned. But yesterday you showed arrogance and prejudice. You mocked a guest in my hall. You insulted the descendants of warriors who saved our civilization. Hana's head bowed. Yes, my Queen, I did. I have no excuse. I allowed my pride to blind me to the truth. Your words hurt not just Taemin, but the memory of all the humans who died for us. Your mockery dishonored their sacrifice. The Queen's voice was stern but not cruel. However, you have acknowledged your mistake. That is important. Now you will make amends. The Queen gestured to Taemin. Commander Hana, bow before Shield Brother Taemin. Show him and all present that the Valtheris remember their debts. Show that we honor those who deserve honor, regardless of how long they live or how advanced their technology is. The hall went dead silent. This was unprecedented. A commander of Hana's rank bowing to an outsider, to a human who had been on their world for less than 2 days. It was unthinkable, but Hana did not hesitate long. She turned to face Taemin, her expression serious. Then slowly she dropped to one knee. Her head bowed low. It was the deepest form of respect a Valtheris warrior could show. Shield Brother Taemin. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. I apologize for my words and my disrespect. I mocked you without knowing your history. I judged your species without understanding your worth. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Taemin looked uncomfortable. He stepped forward and offered his hand. Stand up, Commander, please. Hana looked up surprised. Taman continued, I do not want you on your knees. I want you standing as an equal. That is what Jinwoo and the others fought for, is it not? Not to be worshipped, but to stand beside you as friends and allies. Slowly, Hana took his hand and stood. For a moment, they looked at each other. Then Hana spoke quietly, meant only for him but heard by those nearby. You are generous to one who wronged you. You made a mistake, Taemin said simply. We all make mistakes. What matters is what you do after. Something changed in Hana's expression. The arrogance and pride that had defined her before were gone. In their place was something new, respect, maybe even the beginning of friendship. The Queen watched this exchange with approval. Then she raised her voice again. Let all present follow Commander Hana's example. Bow before Shield Brother Taemin. Show that the Valtheris Empire remembers its debts and honors its saviors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Champion Daewon, standing to the side, dropped to one knee. His golden eyes met Taemin's and he smiled. I already called you brother, little warrior. Now let the Empire see what I saw in the arena. Yuna, the historian, knelt next. Then the guards at the door. Then the nobles in the front rows. Like a wave spreading across water, thousands of Valtheris dropped to one knee. The sound of it was like distant thunder. 50,000 beings, some of whom had lived for millennia, bowing before a single human who had lived barely 30 years. Taemin felt his throat tighten. This was too much. He was nobody special. He had just done what needed doing, what any soldier would do. But looking across the sea of kneeling figures, he understood something. This was not really about him. It was about Jinwoo, Bora, Sanghi, and all the others. This was the honor they should have received 10,000 years ago. He was just the one lucky enough to be here to receive it on their behalf. Finally, even Queen Mirai knelt. The sight of it made several Valtheris gasp. The Queen never knelt, never. But she did so now, her head bowed. For Jinwoo and all the fallen, she said softly. Thank you. Taemin felt tears on his face but did not wipe them away. He tried to speak but could not find words. What could he possibly say to this? After a long moment, the Queen rose and the rest of the hall followed. She approached Taemin and placed a hand on his shoulder. You carry a heavy burden now, Shield Brother. You represent not just your living people but your honored dead, but you do not carry it alone. We will stand beside you as your ancestors stood beside us. A commotion at the entrance interrupted the moment. A human man in formal diplomatic clothes rushed in, looking flustered and apologetic. He was older than Taemin, with gray in his hair and the soft look of someone who worked in offices instead of battlefields. Your Majesty, I apologize for my late arrival. There was an issue with the transport and He stopped, seeing the scene before him. Taemin standing beside the Queen, everyone looking at them. What did I miss? Despite the heavy emotion of the moment, several people laughed. Even the Queen smiled. Ambassador Kyungsoo, welcome. You missed the opening ceremonies, but you arrive in time for the important work. Come, there is much to discuss. She turned back to Taemin. Walk with me, Shield Brother. We have 10,000 years of catching up to do. I want to know everything about how humanity has developed, what your people have achieved, what you have learned in your time alone among the stars. As they walked toward a private conference room, Hana fell into step beside them. Taemin glanced at her and she gave a small smile. If you will allow it, I would like to learn about human military tactics and history. Perhaps I can serve as a liaison between our forces. I would like that, Taemin said. I know almost nothing about the Valtheris. It would be good to have a teacher. Ambassador Kyungsoo hurried to catch up, his expression bewildered. Someone please explain what is happening? Champion Daewon laughed and clapped the confused diplomat on the shoulder. Everything has changed, Ambassador, everything. Come, I will explain over food. This will take a while. Outside the palace, Valtheris communication towers began transmitting across the Empire. The news spread at light speed to thousands of worlds. Humanity has returned. The dead is remembered. A new era begins. In orbit above the Valtheris homeworld, a fleet was gathering. Ships from across the Empire preparing for a journey. They would travel to Earth's solar system not as conquerors or observers, but as friends coming home after a long absence. They would come bearing gifts, technology, and most importantly, remembrance. Taemin looked out a window as they walked, seeing the stars beyond. Jinwoo and the others had looked at these same stars 10,000 years ago. They had fought and died under them. Now their descendants would walk among them as equals, as brothers and sisters to civilizations that spanned the galaxy. He touched his chest where his own military tag rested beneath his uniform. He thought of all the soldiers throughout human history who fought and died believing their sacrifices would be forgotten, that their names would fade into nothing. "We remember you," he whispered to the stars. "The galaxy remembers you. You are not forgotten." Behind him, Queen Mirai heard and smiled. She touched Jinwoo's tag.